Many law students researching law firms in anticipation of OCI, networking, interviewing, they report a common problem that they cannot tell these guys apart. They all have beautiful, marketing-friendly websites. They have offices all over the world. They specialize in the top practice areas, but it's difficult to tell which one of these practice areas they focus in different offices. And more importantly, it's difficult to distinguish them to figure out which ones may be the right fit for you. In today's video, I'm going to share with you an overview of the top tools I recommend my students to use when researching law firms, and I'll give you a demo of these tools. So grab your notebook, I'll go grab my laptop, and we'll get right to it. So first, an overview of the tools you should consider using when researching law firms. First, the firm website. Second, what I'm going to collectively call ranking survey platforms. These are platforms where you can find rankings of the firm, general rankings, practice area rankings, geographical rankings, rankings by revenue, money, rankings by prestige, and also surveys, basically what associates tell about the firm, their diversity scorecards, things like that. And we're going to cover three tools: Chambers and Partners, American Lawyer Rankings, otherwise known as AmLaw, and Vault Rankings. The third platform is NALP Directory, one of my favorite tools to actually use for looking up firms. Fourth tool is the firm's social media platforms, the news they're putting out about themselves, how they're presenting themselves. And last but definitely not least, human connections. These can be your classmates, your peers, former summer associates, people who've already interviewed at this firm, people who have left the firm. They can provide the most valuable resource in being able to tell the firms apart. So I figured we should just pick a firm and use these tools. And for the firm, I have picked Wilmer, Cutler, Pickering, Hale, and Dorr, Wilmer Hale, simply because that's my old firm. I spent most of my career practicing at Wilmer Hale. And once I actually demo this, I will share with you what I generally think about rankings, what I think, like the amount of weight I think you should put in different tools, and finally some tips for interviews. All right, so the first thing I want to look at, we'll look at their website in a little bit, but first let's look at the ranking survey tools. American Lawyer, so I basically Googled AmLaw rankings hundreds, top hundreds. Or you can just come to law.com American Lawyer and you will see that they have this tool, this thing called survey and rankings right here. So there's AmLaw 100, AmLaw 200. Now I can look at AmLaw 100 and just like look for the firm I'm looking for. But something I have found out is it's also just as easy. Like a lot of times I just find it easier to just put AmLaw 100 Wilmer Hale. And see, it just takes me directly to Wilmer Hale's portfolio, and I can see, okay, here we go, here are the rankings. So let's just go back. I already had this pulled up. So if I would go to AmLaw 100, this is all their 100 rankings, and AmLaw ranks them by gross revenue, by money, right? And we come right here. Here's the list, 1 to 50. Where is Wilmer? Okay, here we go. Wilmer is right down here. Now keep in mind, this starts at 1 billion. And then the way I got there, the second way, which I just Googled, I recommend basically just Googling that ranking platform, here AmLaw, and just the firm's name, because then you can just finish your research of that firm instead of going through different rankings. So with Wilmer, we can see how they are ranked the last 3 years. So on AmLaw 200, they have been 29. This is also a really, successful firm because they even have a global ranking. We have a little bit of snapshots of their, PPP, their profit per partner, and the revenue per partner, number of associates. So, okay, so that's AmLaw. Now let's look at chambers. So chambers and partners, let's actually do it. I'm going to just go a step back and just show you. Yeah, I probably just did that. Look, I said Chambers, WilmerHale, and it brought me to their portfolio. And on Chambers, there's a firm bio. There are ranked departments, ranked lawyers, ranked offices. One of the things that I actually find the most useful in Chambers is this practice area bands. Because for the firm, they are looking at each practice area and trying to figure out where that firm falls. Now you might, so band 1 is the best. Let's get more results. Band 1 is the best. I don't know how far down it goes. Like I see band 6. So, but I want you to keep in mind, if something is band 3 or band 4, that doesn't mean it's bad. There are like thousands of firms. So if a firm, is being ranked for a certain practice area at all, that means they are good at it. That means you can get the experience you need at that firm in that practice area. So let's say I know for sure I want to be an IP lawyer, and I'm going to look at their nationwide. Let's look at for IP. So WilmerHale intellectual property. I was a patent litigator. It's band 1. You'll probably find whenever you look up a prominent firm like WilmerHale, you're going to find a lot of band 1s, not just nationwide, but also probably specifically. Like look at Massachusetts, corporate and M&A, intellectual property, general litigation, securities, right? So I might take a look at this and jot these things down if certain practice areas are important to me. And last but not least, let's look at Vault. Yeah, I did Vault top 100. Let's do that. Look, theirs is based on the prestige, on the assessments of lawyers at peer firms. So let's say if I'm a lawyer at Skadden, how do I view WilmerHale compared to others? And Wilmer is probably 20. I just looked at it, so we'll just scroll down. 19, sorry. And when you click on the profile, what I really actually have always liked about Vault is, in addition to like the intros and the associate reviews, my opinion as associate reviews is simply this. I would want to know if the associates who send those reviews, if they are like me. And by that, I don't mean they look like me. I mean, do they have the same personality as me? Because if an environment that is terrible for me might be perfect for you and vice versa. Of course, I'll take a look. If a lot of people are saying the same thing about a place, I want to take note. But I personally prefer to only look at these platforms for the objective data. And for the subjective data, I'm going to tell you when we get to connections how I go about figuring that out. So let's go down here about the firm. Here's really what I want. I want to see their rankings. So I can see that of course, they were ranked in the hundreds. We saw them, but pro bono, all those things, I like that, sure. But what I really want is more about their practice areas. So prestige-wise, intellectual property, we saw they were band 1 in Chambers. Here, like their peers are viewing them to be number 6. The reason I like using all 3 of these tools and not just one is because every person is different. If I know for sure I want to practice forever in Texas, and I know for sure that I want to make a partner at a firm, I might choose a firm that is their national rankings or their gross revenue is not going to be in the top 20 or even the top 50 or 100 on AmLaw, but they have good rankings on practice areas, on chambers. They are prominent in that geography, and they are really well known for grooming you to make partner. So this is why, if you're going to at all consider rankings, look at multiple ones and jot them down. All right, so now we got an idea of Wilmer's, general rank, practice area rankings, geographical rankings, and play along, with these tools. And if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments, and I will try to answer them as specifically and as detailed as I can, I promise. So the next tool, as I said, my favorite tool, let's go back here too. So now we are on NALP Directory. So nalpdirectory.com, and I'm just going to type Wilmer Hale. And I could have, of course, right there, filtered down to different offices, different things. This is a really great tool, actually, if you're just generally looking for firms. So let's say if I know I want to be in, where do we want to be, guys? I want to be, let's go back to Texas. I want to be in Texas, and I am looking for just law firms. And I know I only want to be in Houston, and I want to work for a place that, like an office that is, large enough, but not too large. So I can search, and it just gives me some results, and then I can look them up. So this is actually a great tool to search. NALP also has a really great feature where when you find these firms, you could really check them, and you could do, you see this compare tool right here. This is a really great tool. So play around with it, and if I've narrowed down to, let's say, 5 or 6 firms in here, I might just pick these and just press the compare tool and pick the metrics that are important to me and compare them. So let's go back to our Wilmer Hale research. They are not in Texas, so let's make this perfect. Let's search. Okay, cool. So the reason I like NALP Directory so much is for that specific problem that we talked about, that it's hard to tell, with prominent firms, all the ones who are in this, not just the ones that are national, but even the really prominent regional firms that are big law firms. They have a lot of practice areas, but which ones do they have in the LA office versus the San Francisco office, in the Houston office versus the Dallas office, in the Chicago versus New York office, right? So some firms on NALP, they're reporting extremely detailed data for their different offices. And Wilmer Hale seems to be one of those. But I was in the Palo Alto office, so let's check out the Palo Alto office. So the first tab I want to show you is this basic information. You have the recruiting contact, and you also have the hiring attorney. This is a lot of times this is a partner, we call a hiring partner. If you are not subscribing to if you don't follow us on Instagram, please do so. On every Thursday, we have something called Legal Lexicon, and we're going to talk about this different terminology, like the hiring committee, like the hiring partner, the summer associate committee. So the hiring partner is sits on the hiring committee together with the recruiter and makes a lot of decisions. And sometimes maybe even if you look up the hiring attorney, you'll see that they are in the exact practice area you're really interested in. Maybe they went to the same law school as you. So that can be a good networking point of contact for you. The second, my really, really favorite tab is this practice area tab. Why? Because it gives me a glimpse of what's going on. So this is a smaller, well, not small, but smaller office of WilmerHale. And how do I know that? Let's go back to basic information. Did you see right here the other office locations? The reason I said it was smaller is because Boston is 260, DC is 329. And one thing that I wish NALP had is that they would also list this office right here, even though we're in there. So I kind of have to like click on San Francisco to then see Palo Alto, which is here is reported as 55. So now I'm back in the Palo Alto office. Let's go back to practice areas. So I can see there's a lot of litigation here. There's a lot of litigation. There are a lot of associates, and they also do some corporate. They have lawyer demographics, especially for those of, and they have a breakdown of their diversity organization-wide, as well as how you want to look at different criteria here. And I will look at partnership, maybe partnership and advancement. So Wilmer only has one tier partnership. That means once when you're an associate, when you get promoted and you become partner, you are an equity partner. You're sharing in the ups and downs of that entity. When there are profits, it gets split up based on a formula, and it's just like being a shareholder in any kind of business. Some firms you're going to see yes here. That means your name might be partner, but you can be an income partner. I do like this tab to recruitment and hiring, and their hiring grids. So look, Wilmer, Palo Alto, even though it was on the smaller offices, in 2021, they're reporting 8. So that's a pretty good number. How is this information relevant to me? This is all relevant to me in the context of who you are. And I'm going to link below an article I wrote a few years ago with an eye towards students who had gone through OCI, and we were right after OCI. They hadn't found a job, so now they needed to hustle on their own, and they needed to be a little bit more strategic in terms of where they're going to put their energy in networking. So I'll link it below. I think it's still useful for those of us who maybe come out of like our first year of law school. Maybe our grades are on the border, maybe we went straight through, so we don't have a lot of work experience, and we need to put our energy where we get the most dividend. And there I talk about rankings as well as this number of summer associates a firm hires in terms of formulating your strategy. If I see a firm hires 30 summer associates and I am borderline, it's a numbers game, right? So maybe I have a better shot than if I see a firm hires 2 individuals, right? It's a smaller office. It's going to be more competitive. Now, again, just like, you're going to be sick of this. To every law, there's an exception. To every rule, there's an exception. You've learned this in law school. It's the same thing here. Maybe a firm hires, 30 versus 8 versus 2, but maybe in the one that hires 2, the practice area they really need is what you have expertise in and you have a strong connection. So it doesn't mean you don't try. It just means you pay attention and you strategize your energy and your interest. And then finally, diversity and inclusion. They have some diversity contacts. This is probably an attorney who sits on the diversity committee. I like to also research that individually on their website to see who else is on that diversity committee if they are actually publishing that information. So this was a little bit about how to use NALP, a robust tool, and I really like using it with my students, and hopefully this was a little bit helpful. Next thing, let's actually look at their website before we go to social media. Pretty website. I was like, I guess I gotta accept the cookies. How can I tell what practice areas they are really focusing on in that office? I'm going to go to people. I'm going to pick that location. Sorry, I'm going to put Palo Alto. And I'm going to, just to make my life easier, I'll just pick partners, because partners usually bring in the business, right? So it's we can just narrow down and help our make our research a little bit more targeted. So there are 14 results, so this is really easy. And I'm going to click on, at least if there were like 14, I might be able to look at all of them. But if there was like 50, if this was a bigger office, then I don't need to look at all 50 partners. I can just look at 10 of them and see if a pattern is going to emerge. All right, so this was how I would go about figuring out what's the general focus in a specific office. But what else is their website useful for? If I have an interview at a firm, I definitely want to look at their insights and news. And I really like here where you can see news, you can see their client alerts, you can see their publications. So not every firm is going to have it divided like this, but I'm just going to go simply to news and see what's going on. So maybe this is like, if you have an interview with this attorney and this is like this is March 4th, 2022, this might not be reflected in their bio yet. So this will be a cool thing to check out. I might also look at any publications they have. If they have, if you're interviewing in corporate and Wilmer is going to such efforts, and in February 28, 2022, they put out this IPO, venture capital and M&A report. If you're somewhat, familiar with these reports, you don't need to become an expert in it. Maybe you can have an intelligent dialogue about it with the partners. Or with the attorneys when you interview with them. All right, now they have blogs and podcasts. So I am and look, there's all these different types of areas that they're focusing on. I happen to be familiar with WilmerHale Launch. It's like their corporate blog. It's the corporate department's blog for entrepreneurs and businesses. Now let's go social media. Next platform, is, let's look at Twitter. I'm not very good at Twitter, so this is actually our company account. But let's see. So look, I just typed WilmerHale. There is a main account. There's a WilmerHale Launch, and there's all these cyber privacy. So depending on my interest, I might actually look at that as well. So let's just go to their main page right now. I might just take a quick look. Maybe just spend 5 minutes on it and just see what's going on. Like, look, we saw this in the news as well, and see if there is something that might grab our attention. I want to go back to now. Let's pretend you guys are interviewing for corporate. No matter where you are, let's actually follow them. It's 9 hours ago, they had something about the COVID-19 relief for businesses. So I might take a look at this. Maybe in their materials, you'll see attorneys presenting who are going to be interviewing you. So it's worth taking a look and just getting a glimpse of what that firm is focusing on. And then there's Instagram. A lot of firms are new to Instagram, and they are, we're just catching up with you young people, but they are showcasing some of their fun sides. Maybe they are, so let's check out and see what Wilmer is doing there. So I can see there's a podcast they have in the public interest, and they're having they've had a conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion, death penalty, privacy law, right? So I will, take a quick look at this. Look, there's Dr. Karen Korematsu. For those of you who've seen the Korematsu case, she is actually a good friend of mine, and she's the daughter of Fred Korematsu, and a wonderful woman and a wonderful speaker. So I'm now going to go back and check out and see what that was about. So it seems that it's really this podcast. So I might want to just check that out before my interview. I also want to just remembered one of PracticePro's film partners, O'Melveny. I think they actually do a really good job on Instagram by showcasing their attorneys and their attorneys' personalities. So if you click on the different attorneys and you read about them, I think you're going to get a really good glimpse of the type of people who thrive at the firm. They are very active, and they have a very engaging Instagram that I had heard about. So I think that covers a lot of that covers the main tools. And I hope the demo of trying to look it up together was helpful, as I promised to talk a little bit about rankings. Throughout all the years, I've come across students who are like, I have to go to this firm because they're number 5 on Vault versus number 25. Or I need to go with this firm who is like number 3 in rankings, in AmLaw ranking, they made the most money. Or I need to go to the firm that is number 1 in M&A. I don't think that's quite right, but I understand where it's coming from. Mostly it's coming from law school, right? Because in law school, it is true that in this profession, I'm not telling you it's the right thing, but it seems that if you go to a top 10 law school or top 20 law school, you get to have it a little bit easier sometimes in the job market, or getting a clerkship. So top 10 versus top 20 versus top 50 versus top 100 and versus the rest of the schools. But in the law firm world, it is not quite as simple, because one, unlike law school where most people still really just look at US news, and maybe others are up and coming. In the law firm world, you saw that there are different types of rankings. So which one really are you going to rely on? The second issue is law schools, especially the top ones, even for the last, I don't know, like almost 2 decades I've been watching them, they stay more or less the same. Maybe like some come inside the top 100, some come inside and go out, but the top 20 have for the most part stayed pretty stable. Whereas with firms, they have switched. Some of the ones with the highest gross revenues now, they weren't there like 10 years ago. And, so if 10 years ago, I would have just picked based on gross revenue, well, that wouldn't really help me. I also strongly believe that after you pass a certain threshold in general prestige, they all actually know that they all represent the same clients in the same sector that they're playing in the same industry that they're representing. You have the same intelligent colleagues. It's the same type of sophisticated work. And sometimes, depending on what you want, what's your objective, what is your geographical focus, might make sense to go to the place that is the absolute best in M&A or IP, or maybe it's better to go to a place that is up and coming if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, and you want to get a lot of work, get exposure to a lot of early responsibility, because you can use those skills to help build that department to get to that, the top tier in that practice area. So if and in that process also become partner or make a name for yourself. So this is my way of saying, don't just say, oh yeah, I'm going to go here over this other place just based on the rankings. And that brings me to the final tool we talked about, connections. Your connections matter. As we talked about, your peers, the former summer associates at that firm, people who've left, clients of the firm. So if you're networking with in-house lawyers, you can, ask them about the firms that represent them and what experience they generally have. I find out that facts are more important than opinions. So when I try to ask for advice, I try to see what portion of it is that person's impression, which might be useful, but if they have a different personality and they've concluded that because of X, this firm is Y, that might not apply to me. But I will be forever grateful for their advice as they're giving me the facts of what they know about the specific firm, the way they assign, they give out assignments, the way they treat their attorneys, the way they treated a specific person when they had a hardship and they needed to take leave, right? So I'm looking for facts. So to recap, one, rankings, consider them, but be very careful into not putting too much weight into them. The working with the people who are going to really groom you and teach you how to be a good lawyer is the most important thing in your early years of practice. And second is when you are asking for advice from your connections and gathering data, make sure you differentiate between fact, opinion, and watch out for projection, because we all do it. And then finally, as you're researching firms, as you're starting this process, get organized, have an Excel chart or whatever tool you like. And, so you look up that firm just once. We looked up Wilmer Hill. Imagine right now we had an Excel chart. We put the firm name, the office we're interested in. We put how many attorneys are there. We put their practice area breakdown. We put maybe the name of the contacts we found with for recruiting and the hiring partner and diversity and inclusion. And maybe we just, if you have any contacts already, we go ahead and list them there. What I have also found that law students do is they are so anxious about finding new connections. They sometimes forget they already have connections. So if you are on LinkedIn, if you're not, you should be, but if you're on there, if you just pull up the firm, you will see if you already have connections there. People might have moved around, or you might have a connection of a connection who can connect you. That was a lot of connect. So with that, I know this was long, but I wanted to give you kind of an overview of how to approach this law firm search and start differentiating them a little bit. If you have any questions about how to research law firms, please feel free to comment below or shoot us an email. I will do a video later on where we look at individuals, attorneys that you might be interviewing with during the on-campus or callback interviews, and how I actually look up data and why it's useful when you are interviewing with someone. Until we meet again, good luck, stay well, and please consider subscribing to our channel.